Chapter 1, An Empty Road. The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning.
Welcome to Bull-Headed Wheelers. We're back, baby. Bull-Headed Wheelers, let's go. Hiatus.
Yeah, I know, a long hiatus.
Craig's in, baby.
Yeah, who's on here?
I should start recording, Bear.
It's just a recording
I
bear.
literally thought someone like...
We have a live listener.
I was like, this is so creepy.
That's so funny. We've added a new member. Introduce yourself.
Stephanie.
Stephanie is the one that introduced me to the Wheel of Time series.
I feel very special right now.
Yeah, this all started with you.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's true. And Stephanie and Duquesne are cousins.
Ooh.
Yep.
That's how we're all related here.
This is my library room. I've got all set
I
up.
love it.
Oh, you moved.
Yeah, I have a 2-bedroom
I didn't realize
apartment.
you moved.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I didn't know you actually moved. So much has happened in 3 months.
No,
Like,
it's been...
I moved. Like, we got engaged because just having Duquesne as a friend wasn't good enough. I needed to be family.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to propose to Stephanie.
That's the only reason he proposed.
You had to keep the podcast going, and this was the only way to...
He's like, we gotta keep the
Sure.
podcast
I
alive.
thought the podcast was dead, and then I proposed, thinking maybe it would come back.
Yeah,
and
look, it worked.
Came saving. Sent me the text one day and was like, "Let's bring it back," and I was like, "Let's go."
So what happened is when I was setting up this room, I was like organizing everything by genre, and I had the Wheel of Time series, and I put that on my main bookcase in the living room, and I was like, oh, I want to start, because I never finished the third one, so I have it, and I've been like slowly working my way through it, and then I was like, oh, I should do the podcast again because I forgot how good it was.
I honestly felt I was very excited for today, and then I was talking to my mom on the phone. And she was like, what are you doing later tonight? And I was like, oh, I'm doing a podcast. And she's like, oh, really? With who? I was like, Duquesne and Justin. She's like, what are y'all talking about? I was like, a fantasy novel.
That's how we do it.
I tell people I'm doing podcasts, and they're like, that's so cool. What are you doing over? And I'm like, oh, a book I'm reading, Wheel of Times. And then people don't think it's as cool. They usually lose interest after that.
Well, I still think it's cool.
I do too.
So Stephanie started reading the book today, and she just finished the first chapter like 5 minutes ago.
Hey, that's all we need.
Yeah,
though.
I'm ready to roll.
Which is actually insane to me because she read the intro, like the prologue, and then she read the first chapter, which is like 50-something pages.
Yeah.
And she did that in probably less than an hour.
After I saved some babies.
After, a 12-hour shift, and it would have taken me like at least a day.
Well, also,
Duquesne probably could have done it in 20 minutes.
The beginning though was like
Duquesne's
hard to read though. Like I struggled reading the first couple of chapters because it just was slow to me, and there's so many weird words and names.
Yeah, I feel this way with like all these books because like this is like it reminds me of like the George R. Martin like style of writing, but I just feel like there's so much detail that it just takes longer to get into like the plot of the book because you're trying to figure out like where which character comes in. Like I kept on referring back to the map in chapter 1 and 2, so I feel like
and Stephanie is a first-time reader.
I am a first-time.
Never read this before, so she's doing it live. And so we kind of talked about in the first episode that the prologue is really confusing. Do you remember anything?
Yeah, but I think
There's a lot of characters.
There's a lot of characters. I mean, it's talking about them when they're all younger. I kind of like the prologue. You know, I feel like I feel like it's very detailed on where they live. The reason I said DRAT because Egwene, I think that's how you say her name, says DRAT like 5 times in the prologue. But I like Egwene. I feel like it's told from her point of view and like from a child's point of view with like all the chaos of, I forget the festival they were doing. But I also
Shearing.
Yeah, the shearing.
Yeah.
I like the prologue.
Yeah, Stephanie was sitting over there in the living room, and I just hear her go,
DRAT.
DRAT. Well,
But it takes a turn. Does that like dark turn where everyone's dead and
yeah, Duquesne, you want to remind us what kind of happened real quick in the prologue?
so there's like 2 parts to the prologue. So the first one is, a kind of cheerful village festival and kind of learning about how they live life. And then the second one happens at a different time. I don't know how many years before, but like way further in the past. And it is basically giving you a rundown of, it's like what they call the dragon and like how he broke the world. They have a name for it.
The breaking of the
Is
world.
it breaking of the world? Oh, see, I was thinking
Breaking, yeah.
I was thinking there was a fancy name.
You literally just said it.
You meet this guy, and you're in the setting where everyone's dead, and he doesn't know what's going on, and basically you learn that it's the dragon, and you figure out that he basically went crazy and lost control of his magic, and broke his whole like community, family, killed all of them, and he then kind of like commits kamikaze suicide and breaks the world by using his power because he's like so angry, and creates a huge new mountain, and it basically tells you like the danger of using the true source, but you don't really know that many details. You just know it's a huge event, a lot of people die, and then it's almost like he creates like a volcano explosion.
Yeah, this part was like confusing to me a little bit because he like blows everything up but also saves it at the same time.
Yeah, that's
why I'm like, what the heck?
That's a good takeaway, because one of the main takeaways is you kind of hear who the dragon is, but you're not sure if he's good or bad. And I know we kind of mentioned Egwene says that there's just some conflicting, like he saved the world, but he ended the world or broke the world. So we're not sure whose side he's actually on.
I think he's good.
You think he's good?
The
optimism.
And
optimism
you also see in the prologue why
Okay.
people think he's bad, because he did go crazy and kill all of his family, and that's what people remember, and they kind of forget everything else about him.
Yeah, exactly. And we learn some of the main characters.
Yeah.
That's kind of the main takeaway from the prologue.
Which main character do you all relate to the most?
After one chapter?
Okay, I guess that is gonna be our question. Maybe after
Probably.
5 chapters.
No, we can start right at the beginning. Who do
Okay,
you
the
relate with
beginning.
the most?
Do we know enough characters?
I'll say I'm Tam, because he's calm and collected.
Oh, Tam is the dad to not Perry. Rand.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, you're pretty chill.
I feel like they
Sometimes I'll-
well, I feel like mine's Rand, but I feel like they want him to be your kind of guy that you like. I will say my opinion changes as this book goes on and the subsequent books go on. My thoughts
Sneak peek.
yeah, my thoughts change a little bit. But right now I feel like it's Rand, because he's like a kind of younger dude who has potential, and he's, they say he looks different than everyone else and is kind of tall, and you want to see what he does. He has a lot of potential.
Okay, so Duquesne relates with a lot of potential. What about you, Stephanie?
I mean, I don't know if I have that many options.
There's like two
I guess I can choose whoever, though. It doesn't have to be, the same gender. I'm gonna say Egwene.
Egwene? Okay. I thought you were gonna say the old wisdom that dies.
I don't think I think I'm that
It's
dies.
only in the prologue.
Yeah, you don't know that.
Yeah, it just has a
Yeah.
5-second intro. Yeah, I didn't know she died.
well, there's
Yeah,
a new.
it never really
wisdom.
says it. It just
Nynaeve.
Nynaeve, it never says. Yeah, I know. In the Amazon series, she dies.
Oh, so you have some.
Oh, wait,
bias.
have you watched?
Yeah.
Have you watched the show? It's a lot different though. It's
Okay, generally, yeah, it is a bit different. And I would say generally I'm not I'm a person that likes to read the book first, but I did watch the show. I just was
That's okay.
impatient.
That's okay. From what I've heard, it takes a
Lot
different
different.
path.
Little Hollywood twist.
So today we'll just be covering chapter 1, which is mainly just setting the scenery. But yeah, let's get after it. This is chapter 1, An Empty Road. I'm going to have Duquesne read the first paragraph and explain what this, because all of the books actually start
I'd
with
say
the same
you're gonna
paragraph.
get used to this.
Duquesne, you have a good reading voice too.
Thank you for that. That's very kind. I will say I think Justin's voice is better when he's doing voice of characters because he has more voices he can do. He like gets into it. He has different character voices. It's great.
Okay, sure.
All right, I'll jump in though.
Add a little more oomph with your character
I'll try.
voices, Duquesne. We'll see how you progress.
This would be like a narrator voice.
This is like my school teacher voice. I can do this one.
Yes. This is where setting the scene.
So chapter 1's An Empty Road. Starts, Wheel of Time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legends fade to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the Wheel of Time, but it was a beginning. I will say, this frustrated me when I first read it, because
When I literally read that sentence, I was like, I feel like I'm an intelligent person.
I
but
reread
what?
it multiple times.
There's no beginnings, but it was a beginning.
It really dives into
It's deep.
this like really arbitrary explanation of a circle, where you don't know the beginning of a circle and you don't know the end of a circle, but every spot is the beginning and every spot is the end.
All right,
Does
students.
that kind of make sense?
That's
Well, that's what
session.
Talks too about how it goes to this point that a circle continues and always feeds into itself as well. So even when you hit a beginning, you're going to go back to that beginning at some point if you follow all the way around the circle. And even when you get to an end, you're going to repeat that ending. So it's this like weird concept of things repeating over and over again because you're stuck in this circle of time, aka the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, I mean, I think like he had to be a little understandable with Sweet.
No.
Honestly, this is why I don't write like these 14 book.
I mean, when did he write it? It was like mid 1970s or something.
Yeah,
So he could have been.
He's deeper than I am.
Yeah, but we won't spend too much time on it. But maybe come back once in a while and read that again and see if it makes any more sense to you the second time.
Getting into the later books, it's great because I feel like it is more meaningful the more books I get into it. Like that paragraph just starts meaning a lot more. So it definitely is good to like mark it in your books.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Get that pencil.
Because like, it kind of felt like, how like a lot of times when like either like those people that like give speeches or something use like huge words and you feel like they're getting nowhere with their speech.
Yeah.
They're saying that same thing over and over again. It's kind of how it felt with this paragraph.
You're saying you pretty much read it and immediately forgot it.
No, I didn't immediately forget it. I was like, what does
Now
that
wait.
mean? Okay, anyways, we're
All
spending
right,
too much
we'll
time
move
on this.
on. Okay, so I'll kind of set us up with the beginning of the book here, kind of what's going on. So the book starts, it is the morning. Rand Althor and his father Tam, they're traveling back to the Two Rivers from the Mountains of the Mist, which is the westward border of where they live. After being gone for several weeks, they were gone because every year Tam goes out to get apple brandy and apple cider to deliver to the Two Rivers in time for one of their festivals called Bel Tine. So they're walking kind of like on each side of their cart. They've got two small casks of the like alcoholic apple brandy, and then they've got 8 larger casks of some apple cider. And at this point, you kind of get a note that something isn't quite right with the weather. You know, it's colder than it should be this time of year. Bel Tine is a festival that signifies the starting of spring. It mentions there's no birds singing, there's no squirrels running around. You know, Rand says at one point, winter had been bad enough on the farms, worse than ever the oldest folk could remember. And they've even said there's been like some terrible like wolf activity and bear attacks, that men were as often the prey as sheep from these bears. Yeah, this is kind of what's going on at this time. There's like the weather's weird. They're trying to come back with all this like apple brandy and apple cider in time for this festival. So at this point, we kind of get our first description of Rand.
Well, before we get into my voice just cracked. Before we got into Rand, I do think it's interesting to notice how they use animals and like the weather to really mark when things are going wrong, because I feel like that continues to be used.
Yeah, I guess that's how most people back then, like in this time era, they would gauge, you know, something's wrong. You know, like the animals are acting weird, or you know, they just have these expectations with animal activity.
Even though, interestingly, I forget if it talks about this in the prologue or not, but how it talks about before, like, the breaking of the world, that there was, like, these, I forget what word it used, like, these, it almost acted like it was a more modern day society, because there was machines that would fly in the air, machines that would
it did say that.
You know what I mean? So now it's almost like it's reverted back to, like,
primitive.
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, if I had a raven staring at me, that'd be weird. I'd be a little freaked out too.
The raven staring at the beginning.
Yeah.
And
then the wolves. But yes, Rand, going back to our guy Rand, I guess I'm assuming everyone in Bel Tine, or that's where they live. That's what it's called, right?
They live in Two Rivers.
Okay, Two Rivers. Oh, Bel Tine's the
festival.
The festival, yes. Thank you. Everyone in Two Rivers has like brown eyes or something, because I know they describe him as like being really tall.
Mm-hmm.
He is a ginger, and then he has like these gray eyes. Sounds like, honestly, I don't know what age he is. I can't remember if they actually told us that, but seems like he's like a little awkward for his body, like a little taller. I think he has some characteristics of his dad, so like his friends get into mischief, but he kind of almost seems like he's the leader, thinks a little bit more deeply about things. And then of course there's the love interest.
We'll get to that eventually.
Ooh, my favorite part.
But really they kind of start off by just simply comparing Rand to his father, and how he doesn't look like his father at all.
Right, that's true.
He said he's a head taller than his father. He's taller than anybody in town. We don't know anything about his mother, really, other than that
she was an outlander.
She was an outlander, so she wasn't from around there, and she died when he was really little. We don't know how she died or anything.
Yeah, when everyone puts off Rand looking different, they just say it's because of his mom. They never describe what she looks like. They just say like, oh, he probably looks different because she was an outlander, which you never really hear more details about. But
yeah, and I may be jumping to the gun, but are we going to talk about the fling? The inner flame thing.
Yeah, we'll get to the flame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
So we're on this road. They kind of describe Rand, and all of a sudden Rand starts to get this feeling that he's being watched. Kind of has these hairs stand up on his skin. He turns around and he sees like a cloaked figure on horseback. It's a rider. He's wearing all black. He's dressed in black, head to toe. His face isn't showing. His skin isn't showing. His cloak is not even moving in the wind. And he gets kind of freaked out. So all of a sudden he stumbles, falls, looks back up, and this guy's gone. So
yeah, which scary. Like I think the part where I was like, "Oh, geesh, I don't know if I ever felt this," was whenever he said like he could feel the evil or whatever emanating from that guy, quote unquote guy. We don't even know if it's a guy. What if it's a girl?
Could be. And Stephanie is a very paranoid person, I would say, with this kind of thing.
He said, "I can feel the evil."
I don't know. How would you? Well, you definitely. You've had the feeling that somebody's like following you, though.
I was honestly thinking about that when I was reading this. I don't know if I've ever like looked. I think I'm more aware of my surroundings, but I don't know if I've ever like had the feeling of someone's watching me like that. Have you all ever had that feeling?
No.
I don't think you're as aware of your surroundings.
No, I think it seems like that feeling though of like you went and watched a scary movie and then you leave the movie theater and it's dark out at night and you're kind of looking around you because it just is a weird, like scary feeling. That's what it made me think of when he was describing it.
Yes, like you know that feeling like when like every noise in your house, like you feel like it means more than what it actually is.
100%.
And it's like
when you're home alone, it's like all of a sudden every noise.
Well, and then so that's kind of he immediately stumbles and starts like acting weird. So then Tam asks like what's up, and Rand describes what he sees, and it kind of gets pushed off as like a child's imagination, or a teenager's imagination, because he's not a child anymore. But it kind of gets dismissed, and it's just a like, oh, it's a weird time period. You're just worried about the wolves being out. It's probably nothing. And he doesn't say, he's like, I believe you think you saw this, but there's nothing around, so there's no use on dwelling on it. And basically, Tam tells him to move on.
Yeah, they do kind of consider going back and seeing if there's like hoof prints or something, but they're just like, it's like, nothing.
Why go back?
Yeah, exactly. But that's when Tam says to Rand, their names are so similar, remember the flame, lad.
Yeah, the flame.
Remember the void.
Which, like, flame, ginger, dragon, bells.
Bells?
I don't know, it's just like ringing bells in my head.
Oh.
I mean, flame, ginger, dragon. I don't know, that has to be connected.
Okay. I like it. But this flame is like just a trick that Tam uses essentially to make him really good at archery and kind of focus his concentration into like a single action. But he says, concentrate on a single flame and feel all of your passion into it. Fear, hate, anger, until your mind becomes empty. Become one with the void, and you can do anything.
And this is not a normal thing, because it goes on to say that like other villagers didn't talk this way, or didn't really think of the flame. But Tam used it, and that's why he always won the archery competition, and that's why he was kind of the way he was. So it does point out this isn't like a trick that all these villagers do.
Yeah. So it's a little family secret. But eventually, they kind of shove this off and they get to the Two Rivers, trying to return their liquids to the festival. So this is kind of when we get...
Oh, we're not going to talk about the family with consanguinity?
I thought it'd be good to get a good description of what the town looks like. Okay. And then we could start talking about the people in the town. So we have a couple borders here. So we just talked about the western border. which was the Mountains of Mist, which turns into the Sand Hills, which turns into the Westwood, and then eventually we're into the town. The Sand Hills are kind of at the base of the mountain. They're known for just being a bad luck area, and the Westwood is an area that is just really difficult to farm. It's not very fertile land. It says only the hardiest men farm here.
Okay, and is that where Tan and Rand live? Because like their farm is outside of like, you know, the other people's where like, you know, everyone else kind of lives.
I think they live on the edge of it.
That's a good question. I think it is.
They're like seen as brave because they live out
Like
there.
Westwood. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that's the westward border. The eastern border, we have like the Wine Spring Water, which goes into the mire, which is essentially just a bunch of quicksands and bogs. So just like a lot of water on that side. Yeah, it's like a big marsh. And then on the south border, we have the White River, which is this like raging river, which just beyond the White River, we have something called the Forest of Shadows, which is like 100-mile forest. There's no villages in this forest, no roads. There's only bears and wolves is what it says. So it kind of talks about how secluded the town is. Like we have 3 out of the 4 borders just being unlivable land, essentially. We got mountains, water, like a deep forest, a bog, you know. And then so there's the only way to get to the town is from the north.
Oh yeah, unless you're coming from where they came from.
The mountains. But
yeah
they're
yeah.
It actually doesn't say where they came from, which I think is a little odd.
I know, that's what I was going back.
Like it just says they were coming from the mountains.
So they must just live on the edge-ish.
Well, that's why, because later on they do leave the town. Like it says
farm.
they're kind of far away from people. Yeah. I think it's just kind of suggested that they're on the edge.
Which also sets them apart from like the townspeople, you know what I mean? They're just like a little different.
Yeah, I was about to say it makes it like adds to them being a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though they're described as different, they do different things, but then they also kind of live out there. Which I don't know if that's on purpose or what, but it definitely serves to further separate them.
Yeah. Maybe there was just a plethora of apples up there on the mountain for some reason.
Or goats. Maybe they have goats on their farm.
Even though they're so separated, the moment they walk into town, you see that Tam is like a popular guy because it talks about how as he's walking into town, he's like stopping and talking everybody. Mm-hmm. It reminds you of the like that local person that just everyone, even though he's not the leader, everyone just kind of knows him to talk to him because he's like the cool dude.
Yeah, he's chill. He's a widow. Like he's on the board of like the men's board. What's it called again?
The men's guild, or is that there's the women's circle?
Oh, it's just the council, village council.
Yeah,
it's council. Yeah, it's just the council. I think we've been trying to make all these names harder, and it's usually just it's like the self-explanatory
like
name.
Circle.
It's been what? Like,
council.
It's been like 3 months since we recorded the first episode. Yeah, so he's like this leader, so everybody knows.
And he's
him.
besties with Egwene's father. It makes me, this is why I think small towns are so nice. Everyone knows everybody.
Yeah.
I love big towns too, but
Well, this is a village. Technically, village is
I think I could live
an actual description of, depending on how many people.
I'm going to say 150. No, I'm going to say 200 is a village.
I bet it's less than that. Somebody looked that up. But so like when they get into town, they're kind of setting up for Bel Tine. So we got a couple bridges on the far side of like where the water is. They're setting up these fire pits. These big old fire pits. There's like a big green space, kind of like a courtyard type deal. So most of the festivities are in the courtyard by the fire pits. And then you see these women putting up like a spring pole is what it's called. It's a tall bear tree trunk.
Yeah, where the women dance around the pole in front of the men.
That's exactly what happens.
That is the description.
Yeah.
The single women dance around the pole in front of the single men.
Yeah. That's the
In case you want to know the TLDR version.
yeah, that's the spring pole. And then they talk a little bit about Bel Tine, how it's kind of like a big fair and festival type deal, lots of games and stuff, singing and dancing, and
It sounds so fun.
yeah, it does sound
It
fun.
reminds me of our field day here.
That's a good comparison.
We don't have singing and dancing, but
That's true.
the best singer.
And it kind of talks about how the town, like how what their mood is, what their reaction is to like this persistent cold weather, which is essentially seasonal depression, is what I kind of described it as.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, oh, they're just so sick and tired of it being cold.
it's a good way.
Yeah. Like, no kids are playing. It's too cold out. The
They
wolves
got
are
the
out. The
sads.
bears are out. They got the sads. They're just kind of sick of this. And so they're just trying to manifest this warmth. The women are they're just starting to do their springtime activities. They're cleaning the house. All the men are going to check their roof to see if the hail has damaged it. And there's these like rumors going around of like a firework and a glee man, and everybody's just kind of looking forward to the festivities. So that's kind of like what the mood is of the town, is just getting over this seasonal depression of winter and just like manifesting more. That's the best way I think I could put it.
It's like that feeling when you have that like first warm day of spring and you're so excited for summer.
Everyone's
warmer
outside
weather.
and trying to like, yeah.
Yeah.
And the only one that's puts a damper on it though is the favorite of the village, Wit, who he gets a little bit of a description, and I feel like he's that like
Grumpy old man.
our group has that grumpy old man that is always complaining and finding issues, and everyone like puts up with it, but also no one really wants to put up with him. So
Yeah.
Wit, I think that's his last name, right? And
Are you talking
he's
about? There's a couple grumpy people in town.
Yeah.
There's
they-
Senbui.
couple that
Congers and the
Sassy.
Coplins, right?
That's what you're talking about. The Congers and the Coplins.
there's the Congers and the Coplin, but you're talking about someone else. You're talking about
So the first people we meet is the Conger
Whit
and the
Conger.
Coplins. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Wit Conger is his first name.
Yeah, they're kind of described as just being like, they just complain all the time. They're negative. And then it also describes these two families as somewhat, what's the incesty?
may not be first cousins.
Yeah.
They say intermingled, I think is the wording. But yes, it
That was
suggests
Chloe's word. Incesty.
That's a nicer way to put it, Stephanie.
Nicer. They're way intermediate.
May or may not be first cousins. We're not sure.
We never know. Okay, are you thinking of Sin too? Because Sin is the one, Sin Bowie or whatever his name is.
These are
who-
other
Sin is the
grumpy
one that's-
guys.
he's on the council though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the grumpy man that's always on the council. And honestly, council. Honestly, you all too, like, I feel like I'm a pretty patient person, but it's the complaining. Yeah, complaining just brings the mood down.
Yeah, those are our complainers right there. Congers, the Coplins, who may or may not be one family, and Sambui, who is on the village council, and he's also like the town thatcher, like fixes the roofs and stuff. That's pretty much all we meet, though. Why do we meet all the negative people?
Yeah, that's who they like introduce you to at first, and it's an interesting
And Matt,
introduction
don't
to the
forget Matt.
village. Well, he comes a little later. He's once they're at the tavern.
I like Matt. A little bit of mischief. He keeps everyone young.
Oh, Duquesne, tell us how you really
Yeah, I think Duquesne has a little more
I am not.
insider info.
I'm not a fan. I do, so we're not gonna say anything. But I have some
I think
issues with that.
I think at least right now he brings everyone, like, I feel like Rand can be pretty serious, Perrin can be pretty serious. He like brings them out over their head a little bit. Like sometimes they can be so serious for their age. In my head, their age is like 16, 17. And Matt acts
18.
more like a 15-year-old,
12-year-old.
14-year-old,
Oh.
maybe 12 in certain times.
12-year-old.
Yeah, So he makes it a little more fun.
Duquesne's the teacher, so he would know the exact age range.
I think it does kind of suggest they're like 16, 17, because I think at one point it says that a lot of the girls start marrying around.
Yes,
Or
that's
get-
why
they-
I said
they
that's too Duquesne.
Yeah, they get their braided hair, which means they're seen as a woman, and they said that happens usually around, I think, 16. Unless I'm just making that up.
And then the last person we meet is Bran Alvear, who is the innkeeper. He's Egwene's father, and he is also the mayor. So he's kind of just like a big fat man because he's an innkeeper. A lot of innkeepers are larger individuals.
Does it say he's fat?
Yeah, he's like a big
Yeah.
jolly dude, great host.
I think they say like heavy set, but yeah.
Because in my head, he was like, honestly, I thought he was like Jason Momoa in my head.
He's just a ripped guy with just luscious locks.
I think at one point,
He's,
I think they talk about how much he likes food at one point too.
yeah.
It's like later on, not in this chapter.
Maybe just
but
less ripped, more Santa-y version of Jason Momoa.
Yeah, that sounds about more right.
That's how we're
Yeah. And then kind of the last big topic of the chapter is Winter Night. They kind of mentioned Winter Night, which is the night before Bel Tine Festival. So they're on the day before Bel Tine, and the night they have like this progressive dinner type social event where they go back and forth to everybody's house. Everybody has small gifts and food and drinks. So it's almost like a big night party before the festival. So they're kind of gearing up for that at the same time. Yeah, lots of EDM playing.
This is also though when Rand does bring up Matt, he brings up at one point the
writer,
and that's when we
Just
find
quote-
out that Matt had also seen a similar figure at like the same timing or earlier that day. So that's kind of our first hint of something might actually
He's
be
real.
on. Yeah, and like something's wrong.
Yeah, that's a great point, Duquesne. That's definitely a major plot point, I would say. Is that Rand is not the only person who has seen this Black Rider with this. You can't tell who it is. His like cloak isn't flying in the wind. They both kind of saw it.
Scary.
They both saw it. They both told somebody of authority, and they both just kind of put it off. So I did write this down. I thought it was interesting. I said, Rand recites something like a catechism. He says, "The Dark One and all the Forsaken are bound to Shaiol Gul, beyond the Great Blight, bound to the Creator at the moment of creation, bound until the end of time. The hand of the Creator shelters the world, and the light shines on us all."
Yeah, I remember reading that and being like, whoa, he went into like preacher mode just then.
Yeah, it was just like this deep thought that he just says out loud or thinks, and it's not really provoked by anything. It's just like Matt mentions, oh, this dude's evil that is like, radiating from him that they can just feel. He's like, maybe he's the Dark One, and then Rand just like says this.
You know what it made me think of? Because I do this at night sometimes. I feel like it's almost like a comfort thing for him. You know what I mean? Like he's saying that because it's comforting him. So like when I hear a scary noise at night, or like sometimes when my feet are uncovered, I'll cover them back up because I'm scared someone's gonna grab my foot or something, and then I'll say like a quick prayer, and it makes me feel like.
Yeah, it reminded me of people like crossing themselves. Like when they see something bad, they'll like quickly cross themselves as like a protection or to like ward things off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where they learn this. Is this just part of their childhood? There's not much schooling that's talked about or anything. So maybe it's just something everybody knows. But he says it. We still don't know if, they haven't mentioned the dragon yet, but we don't know if he's good or bad, but they know the Dark One's bad.
Yeah.
So at least we know that.
And Rand and Egwene are about to see each other.
Oh, baby.
I can tell that's Steph's like favorite part. I can tell.
If there is no love interest, he is not interested.
A little bit of, little adventure, a little spice.
I will say
That's pretty much where the chapter ends.
for people who are into more of the love story, it's a little sneak peek ahead, but the books and the next couple books keep you guessing. So there's plenty of
Honestly, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If there is a little bit of hope, that's almost better sometimes.
Yeah. Well, there's some drama in like the second and third book. Like it gets Stephanie, you'll like it. It keeps you guessing.
Yeah, I'm excited because there's some parts of the series too that I remember and other I don't really remember. So this will be interesting.
So I would say the main takeaways of the first chapter is, what does
I think everyone should say their takeaway point.
What does Two Rivers look like? Where is it? It's this secluded little farm town. Everybody's setting up for Bel Tine, a good understanding of what Bel Tine is. Kind of some of the townspeople that we meet, and then also that Matt and Rand have seen this dark rider, and they've kind of told their parents about it, but they shrugged it off, and they don't know what it is. And that's kind of all that's really happened. I mean,
and Rand and Green are about to see each other.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think also just the point of the world is not in a normal place. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind too. That keep seeing this happening, but there's all these just abnormal things happening and going on. So I think that's a good thing. Not a main point, but just a good thing to keep in mind and to notice those things as we're continuing on.
So, Stephanie, 1 to 10, how hooked are you on the book after 50 pages?
Okay. I'm going to say solid 4.5.
That's probably where I was at that.
But I will say though, this is how I am with honestly most books like this. You have to get past the super wordy introduction parts and then really get in once you start to get a better feel for the plot and for the people, I'll get more into it.
And just mass confusion, and there's just a lot of names, and
and
you're like, I'm falling asleep over here.
Well, that's because I'm tired for my shift. Laying down on the sofa.
I
actually retained it pretty well. I'm impressed.
I told Justin this, I think, but I started this book forever ago, and I stopped within 10 pages because I was like, this is I don't know what this is. But then once I started, I mean, Justin can say it too. Once I got into it, by the second book, I finished the second book in a week. I breezed through that second book. So it picks up.
See, that's why I feel once I get into it, it's just the beginning is always hard because again, this style of writing reminds me of the George R. R. Martin with Game of Thrones.
The Tolkien.
We're watching Game of Thrones right now. Yeah, Tolkien, all those people, and we're watching Game of Thrones right now, and you are totally confused.
Oh, I couldn't even tell you one person's name after 2 episodes.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how I feel about the beginning of this as well.
I do though. I think and Justin, you might have thoughts on this, but I feel his writing gets a little bit more simple as it goes on.
I think it comes. I think just as you keep going, you get more understanding.
Yeah, that might
you just get more understanding, and
is setting the stage is so hard because he's literally introducing us to a completely new world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still think it used to be the world we have now, and it's just reverted back to the medieval times with the breaking of the world.
Hot take.
That's my hot take.
Good take.
I'm here.
I don't know yet. None of us know yet, so that'll be interesting to figure out.
Well, stay tuned, and we'll figure it out together.
Yep.
Stay tuned for Stephanie's budding love story. She will be
all the romance.
I was trying to do.
She'll be leading the coverage on romance.
For all your romantic updates.
Stephanie will have a segment every couple chapters.
Ooh, I could do this. Yeah. What is it? Stephanie's mini cat. Stephanie's mini podcast on Rand and Egwene's love
Well,
story.
hey, I don't want you
Stay
to.
tuned to see if there is a love triangle.
Yeah, don't narrow them down too much. I don't like. You don't want it to be only
Yeah,
on
come
those
on.
two because other things might pop up, or multiple other things might pop up.
We've seen it all here already. If first cousins can find love.
No.
Who else?
I think that's where we'll end it.
Yeah, that's a good ending point.
All right. Stay warm, Wheelers.